said, if you will pay your vow, he said, and call upon me in the day of trouble, he said, I will. Somebody say, he will deliver. But Ecclesiastes 5:4 says what?
When thou vows a vow unto God, defer not to pay it.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because he said vow is a vow. Vow is mean the minute it rolls off your lip. All right. When you speak it, you vow it. When you speak the promise, he said defer. Don't you put off paying that promise. Right. The minute God does for you what you asked him to do, you need to get busy and do what you said you were going to do. Right. Help me, Holy Ghost. Read what he said.
For he hath no pleasure in food.
Because you're a fool.
Yeah.
You see that? If you tell God something and think he's not going to exact out of you everything you promised, that's foolish. Well, Pastor, I just really didn't know when I said what I said. That's why you're a fool. Speak those things that you know. The Bible said that a fool, can I help you with this? That a fool, at the beginning of his words, he says that they're mischief. And at the end of his conversation is utterly confusion. See, the longer a fool talk, the more you know he's a fool. So when you came before God and said something to God, he said, oh, it was a mistake, it was an error, I didn't mean to say it. You stood before the preacher and said, I do. And then 6 months later, you didn't want to. You can't say that I made a mistake. Oh, that really wasn't that wasn't really my wife. I made a mistake. Oh, so he said, when you vow the vow, when you speak that vow, don't you hold up and wait around to pay that vow. Because God don't have any pleasure in food. Read what he said.
Pay that which thou hast vowed.
Come on.
Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay.
See, you should have just kept your mouth closed and stayed in the trouble you were in. Because that trouble that you were in was better than what you're in now. See, it was better you to stay off in the skillet, and the skillet was heating hot, than to not pay your vow and then jump into the fire. I'd rather at least be in the skillet and have something between me and the fire. But when you don't keep your word, your promise to God, you're jumping out the skillet into the fire. So he said, better that you just should have been quiet than to say something and then don't keep it. Read what he says.
Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin.
Our mouth can get our hinder parts in trouble. Read what it says.
Neither say thou before the angel that it was an error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice?
Yeah. Because when you said it, even the angels heard you say it. Then you're going to say, well, God, I just made a mistake. I know I told you if you did such and such, I was going to do such and such. But you know what? I was too rash. I was too quick. I should have thought that out a little better. Read what he said.
And destroy the work of thine hands.
And everything that you did from the point that you made that vow till you broke that vow, none of that counted toward your work, toward God. There are people that say, you know, Pastor, the Lord told me to do such and such. I'm going to obey the word of the Lord. And halfway through that, they quit. I said, well, I made a mistake. Don't let the angels hear you tell that. That's foolish. To say, God told you to come by my house, see how I was doing. And then you called me up and said, I can't make it. A man, a preacher, came to our house. He'd been fasting and praying. He said the Lord told him to come give a word to my wife. And he came and stood on the steps on the den door, and he stood there for about, I don't know how long, several minutes. Small talk. He said, well, I really came over here to let you know the Lord had a word for you, sister. And Valerie, with a smile, came in her arms. She said, well, what's the word? And Sister Valerie, what did he tell you? He said, I can't remember. He said, but sister, when I remember, I'm going to come back and give you that word. That's true story. Don't let the angel hear you making a fool out of yourself. Speaking things, not being able to back them up, not carrying out what you said you were going to do. Let's look at a story in the Bible where a man made a vow and God made a way. This story will give you a great example of what to do when you're in trouble.